Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about my day 5 update for the Grim Pillars Totem Oracle. So we're now deeply in endgame, farming some really juicy Expedition and also some Abyss. And in this video, I want to talk about how to make this build a little bit smoother, less buttons, what you might be missing in terms of damage, some new spirit tech that we found yesterday, and in general, the Rakiata's version. If you don't know what that means, it is the Rakiata's flow version. It usually refers to the support. So after you use that in your main skill, some of the things in your setup will have to change, and I'll explain that in detail right here. Let's first talk about the wand craft though. If you want to know how good this wand is versus what I had in my last video, or was it 2 videos ago, whatever, it is around double damage. That is because how PU2 works is +2 levels is really strong, and all the other modifiers are as well. Now, there are currently 2 crafts going around that are very endgame with the new Astrid's Creativity. Can have 1 additional crafted modifier, which makes it a lot easier to craft some of these. And there's also new modifiers. For example, you can see down here, there's a cast speed gain elemental damage is extra cold. That is 1 modifier from one of the new currencies. Right here from the Transcended Alloy. Now, other than that, the prefixes are a little bit RNG, but everything else you can deterministically craft. If you're wondering, Big Daddy has a really good video out on this, so I will not be making another one, but I will be linking to his video down below in the description. Just know that out of everything I say in this video that is going to be expensive and endgame focused, this should be the first thing you go for. Now, number 2, the Spirit Tag. There is a very cute little thing they introduced this patch. It is called the Rune of the Blossom, and you might have even seen this during leveling. You might have even used it during leveling. Plus 50 spirit, -1 to spirit per 2 levels. The idea obviously being that early on you get a bump of spirit, and then the further you go, the worse this rune gets. However, there is a way around this. So you see Darkness Enthroned. This item gains bonuses from socketed items as though it was body armor. This is only for body armors, right? And then you will see 99% increased effect of socketed augment items. And it's pretty funny because if you look at this item, you'll see that it doesn't scale the bottom part. It only scales the top part. So it scales to plus 99 spirit, but only -1 spirit per 2 levels like it did before. Now, I have not confirmed this, but somebody in my chat has told me, don't know if that's true, if you have 100% increased effect, it screws you over. So just so you don't do that, there's a reason I only have 99% right now. At the time, there was not even 100% up, but don't even attempt it, or if not, you can post it down in the comments if I'm wrong. Either way, this currently gives me, therefore, 49 spirit if I was level 100, but I also get a little bit extra because I'm not level 100. So yes, this one is completely bonkers, and if you're energy shield version anyways, you might as well buy this belt because you want to have it for the energy shield recharge rate on the left. Now, as for what I did with that, I already was on 6 totems because of my anoint. Like I said, official description makes it so you only pay 63 spirit per totems. So I can put down 6 totems, but I also went for elemental conflux. This is just a very solid gem that you can use. It's 60 spirit. It gives you 71% more damage with the affected element. Now, we're split cold and lightning. On average, this gives us around 24% more damage, a little bit inconsistent, but still very strong. Then we have a new currency that gives us a jewel in a glove. It is called Cadigan's Epiphany, and this one makes it so you destroy an augment socket to create a jewel. You cannot take this back, but you can take your jewel out at any time. But this will now be converted because of this jewel right here. Actually, I had it on the item still. It destroys the socket, it takes the socket, you cannot put it out, it is socket bound, but now you can see you have this jewel socket right here, and that's pretty cool, right? Because before I had cast speed here, which was around, I don't know, 2.5% more damage, but now I get, I don't know how much crit multi, faster energy shield recharge, and more energy shield. It is an absolute, yeah, it's just absolutely insane. So yeah. Big upgrade. And then let's talk about Rakiata's Flow. If you've never seen this support, this is it right here. It costs a whopping 100 divines right now, and it should be one of the first chase items if you want to farm some of the harder content in this game. I'll kind of explain why. Hits with supported skills treat enemy monster elemental resistance values as inverted. So what that means is if an enemy has 40 res, it goes to -40% res. So for example, if we take those and we say it has your hit has 100 damage. Okay. Without Rakiatas, you would deal 60 damage if it has 40 res, and you would deal 140 if it has minus 40 res. That is a damage increase of 133% more damage. That is what usually your elemental weakness and frostbomb is supposed to do, but a lot less consistent, and also sometimes worse depending on how much resistance your enemy has, because you got around minus 60 res or so out of it, but you will face enemies that are close to capped resistance, especially in endgame. Now, what is important to note, though, is that the opposite example is also true. It can also reduce your damage if the enemy has minus res. So if you are still going to run elemental weakness and frostbomb, which you see I have removed, then you could actually screw over yourself. Which means that, first up, remove both of them from your setup. Then make sure you have no sources of minus resistances anywhere. That is important. I could not really come up with an example here, but yeah, if you have exposure somewhere else, I guess would be the cleanest here. Just make sure that you cross your T's or whatever. Now, any form of pen is now useless. I still have these two nodes here because they give me some cast speed and attack speed, but it doesn't really do anything anymore. This one I still have because it still gives me 6% as Ellie. But yeah, at any point I could remove those if I find a better spot. And last but not least, resistance maps are now your best mod on a map. So for example, this one gives enemies plus 30 monster elemental resistances. As per the example up top, we can say that that is a difference from 130 to 70. So when you have this on your map, you will deal 85% more damage. Now, what I do personally, I have some maps that are harder than others, and I already can anticipate what those are, is save these up for when you know it's going to get rough, because dealing double damage turns out is pretty big. Now, an example that often comes up with Rakiata's flow is, but what if the enemy has no resistance? Then this support gem is just dead. And that is technically true. However, the way that most tanky monsters in endgame do work is they work through resistances. Most of them don't just have all that raw HP. There is examples where that's not true, and if you're bossing, just to be clear, you can still run Frostbump and Elemental Weakness. But the biggest thing about Rakiatas is you do not have to place your Elemental Weakness in your Frostbump anymore. I don't know if this happened to you, it definitely happened to me with some of the extremely hard mods, and I don't mean just tier 15, tier 16, I mean some of the ridiculous expedition maps with 9 runes and whatnot, or some of the absurdly juicy Abyss encounters I mean, monsters first up are everywhere, so your little tiny Frostbomb or Ellie Weak isn't doing anything. And also, you have to kite, right? Because they just jump at you, and they're extremely fast. And in that case, Rakiatas will just melt them, whereas with Frostbomb and Ellie Weak, there's no shot it's gonna do anything. So chances are, those zero resistance enemies that this doesn't do anything against, you wouldn't need any damage anyways. Now, then let's talk about some mistakes that people can make screw your damage. Top comment on the last video was if I can explain a little bit deeper, and I will in my build guide definitely make a little bit of a more distinct explanation of everything that scales your damage. But the TLDR here is I will talk about some mistake that I've seen people make. That's basically all I can do for now. So the biggest one I've seen is people just start ignoring their Grim Pillars. You will see right here I have a level 31, and it does not increase your mana cost because your mana cost is only on spell totems. That is the biggest mistake I've seen people make. If you don't know how to upgrade Grim Pillars, it is through these right here, Thaumaturgic Flux. You will see right here, if you, for example, put on a level 20, it will become level 20. That is how you have to upgrade them. You cannot do it with uncut skill gems. Make sure you think about the level requirement though. I only remember level 18 was, I think, 78, then 84, and level 90. So don't screw up your gem by not being able to equip it anymore. But the TLDR is this. Grim Pillars right now are pretty damn inexpensive, and do not buy this level 20 currency. You can probably get a cheaper Grim Pillars on the market level 20. In fact, I have been starting to corrupt them. And at some point, you get another level. Now, this is the hardest part in period 2, and I'm trying to get this home because people, they don't think +1 is a big deal because it sounds so cute, right? But every +1 is like 13% more damage, which multiplies with the next 13% more damage that you're gonna get from the next level. It is really hard to understand, but it is so big every single level. If your Grim Pillars, for example, right now is level 24, let's say, you deal half damage. And these levels, once again, upgrade it to 20, then try and corrupt. I don't know what the chances are. They used to be a lot lower, but I've been pretty, maybe I'm just lucky, but it has been pretty reasonable. I would say a 1 in 4, 1 in 8. And after that, as many levels as you can on your wand and also on your Ami. Your Ami is another +3 source. Now, the next biggest thing is a bad wand. Every stat here matters. The +2 level is obviously the most important one, but every stat matters. The difference between this wand and the wand I showed off in my last video is half damage. So we're talking about, okay, you don't have the right gem setup. So you will deal half damage from this, then your wand sucks, you will deal another half damage. You're now at a fourth of the damage. You probably don't have Rakiatas yet, so we're talking maybe a sixth or a seventh of the damage. So most of this will come with gear. And if you are trying to, for example, replicate what some of the streamers are doing, they have a lot of currency invested into your build, and you have to understand that and temper your expectations and farm for those offensive upgrades. Because, for example, the CI swap I did last video where I went tankier, being tankier doesn't mean anything if you do not deal the damage to back it up, because people, like the mods will just overrun you. They will just completely decimate you. So really important. Then we got bad jewelry. We already talked about the amulet, the +3 to levels, really important. Now in endgame, you'll see people also have crit stats here, but that's like in another realm of existence. And then we have cast speed on jewelry, so on rings. Cast speed right here, you can also get pearl rings with cast speed in the implicit. I like rarity, it is what it is. But yeah, you can get upwards of 30% cast speed on your rings in total. And that really does add up if you have it on both. And then also bad jewels. I've seen this over and over again. In endgame, you will have between 3 and 5 jewels. And there's a big difference whether they have crit. Okay, this is actually the worst example. That's the one I should upgrade soon. So for example, this jewel right here. It's a good mixture. I have my energy shield right here, but I also have crit damage, spell damage. Now, each of these jewels is approximately 8 to 9% more damage. If you sum that up with all the jewels and your jewels suck, that's another 30% more damage that you can have right now. It's always a give and take between, do you want to get damage or do you want to get defense if you cannot afford the really good jewels? I understand that, but it is something you'll have to get, and damage is king in PoE2. So if we take all of these mistakes, if you make all of these mistakes in some form, you'll probably deal 1/8 of the damage we're talking about. So yeah, those are probably the biggest ones. Otherwise, everything else will come in the full build guide. Now, as always, my doc is updated down here with all these snapshots. I made 2 more distinct snapshots, which is the last one with the energy shield version, and then also today's version with Rakiatas, because it has quite significant changes that if you do not understand the context, you might screw up your build. So those are important. Always watch the videos together. And yeah, Giga Wandcraft, once again, the big daddy one is right here. I have an endgame filter that is a little bit of a morphed form of what Aeroplane had. I will be updating this one, but if you're watching this in like a month or so, it might be outdated. But yeah, that's about that. Absolutely blasting with the build still. It's just getting better and better. And I'm now at a point where I'm really happy with the build, and I can put out the guide in the next coming days. It takes a little bit because I also have to write the max roll stuff. That video will be in your inbox soon. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed the video and the build in general. And with that being said, does that still have a slogan? See you next time.